Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, July 30th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A historic hit today to the U.S. economy, and it comes as unemployed Americans will lose that $600 benefit starting tomorrow. In Washington, lawmakers are not close to making a new deal, leaving many San Diegans in need of help. KPBS reporter John Carroll begins our coverage.
The extra money provided through the CARES Act has proved a lifeline for millions of unemployed Americans. Now, as it ends, organizations in San Diego that work to help the unemployed are doing what they can.
At the Workforce Partnership, we're here for all the laid-off workers and all the employers who have had to go through this as well.
Peter Kallstrom is the president and CEO of the San Diego Workforce Partnership, a nonprofit that works to connect people looking for work with potential employers. They have a lot of resources at their website, workforce.org.
We have this on-demand video library with an array of trainings from companies like Microsoft. So they've been able to offer a lot of skills and pathways for little to no cost.
KPBS News put out a request on social media to ask how the end of the $600 a week benefit will affect people. From David, the extra $600 has kept my family and small business still open. And from Joe Kinney, it will kill us. We received a lot more comments like that from our viewers and listeners, all of them heartbreaking. But in Sacramento, a lifeline might be coming together. State legislators are looking at taking over payment of the $600 a week benefit.
That agreement hasn't been made yet, but if it is, one of the ideas thrown out is we could make up the difference in whatever the federal government decides on doing.
But Gonzalez says to do that, the state would have to borrow $100 billion, a tough sell even in good economic times. Still, she says lawmakers are well aware that the loss of the $600 benefit means economic catastrophe for lots of Californians.
We're going to end up with a huge housing crisis, a mortgage crisis, as well as a renter's eviction crisis. We're going to end up with people basically starving to death. I mean, it's not tenable.
The legislature must have their budget complete by the end of August. For now, unemployed Californians look to Washington and Sacramento and wait and worry. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Now to that record plunge involving the U.S. economy, and it's shedding light on the deep damage being done by the pandemic. More now from Karen Kafa in Washington.
The coronavirus pandemic's devastating impact on the U.S. economy seen in two reports Thursday.
The report card really validated that this was indeed the worst quarter in U.S. economic history.
The U.S. economy contracted by 9.5% in April through June, an annual rate of 32.9%, and the worst since the government started keeping track more than 70 years ago. And the Labor Department said first-time unemployment claims increased for a second straight week to more than 1.4 million.
Until the virus is tamed and really put in the rearview mirror, there's going to be a ton of uncertainty, not only on the part of consumers in terms of how and where they are comfortable going out and spending money, but in terms of businesses.
Some medical experts say another shutdown is necessary to stem the virus's fast and deadly spread, despite the economic pain.
Right now, the only tool we have to control the virus is shelter in place and physical distancing.
Some financial experts say Thursday's numbers underscore the urgency of congressional action.
I really hope it's a wake-up for Congress. Individuals, families, businesses, communities are hurting right now.
In Washington, Karen Kafa, KPBS News.
To the latest COVID-19 numbers now in the county. Health officials reported 6 deaths, the total now 558. There were 381 new cases and 5 outbreaks reported in restaurants. Also today, a new public health order went into effect. It aims to increase protection for employees working during the pandemic. It requires all employers to now inform employees of any COVID-19 outbreaks or cases at places of business. We asked workplace legal expert Dan Eaton about what rights employees have not to return to work if there is an outbreak.
And if someone continues to be in the workplace who has contracted COVID-19, then an employee may refuse to return. But if, as usually happens, the employer sends that person home right away, sanitizes, provides the appropriate alerts, there really would not be a right for an employee in the private sector at-will workplace to refuse to return.
More than half of county residents face complications if they contract the virus. As KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento tells us, 6 out of 10 San Diegans have a pre-existing condition that increases their risk.
Diseases of the heart, kidneys, and not surprisingly, lungs can make people more vulnerable to a severe case of COVID-19.
You can see that what we call the lumen, or the opening of the airway, is nice and open.
Local pulmonologist Dr. Ni-Chang Liang says lung diseases like asthma restrict that opening, which can become further inflamed by coronavirus.
That is a fabulous setup for another viral respiratory infection to basically take hold and cause even more inflammation.
Liang says impact can be minimized if people better manage their conditions, but she says inflammation is also a risk factor for patients with obesity or heart and kidney conditions, and that can weaken the immune system. San Diego County's top public health official, Dr. Wilma Wooten, says a large part of the local population is walking around with these ailments.
Nearly 6 out of every 10 San Diegan have pre-existing medical conditions, including hypertension as well as obesity.
The county doesn't provide whether the hundreds of San Diegans currently hospitalized for COVID have underlying conditions, but 95% of people who have died did. County Supervisor Jim Desmond has been critical of this and said only patients who didn't have underlying conditions and died are the pure, solely coronavirus deaths. Still, he says vulnerable populations should be protected, especially if we want to reopen the economy.
We need to learn to live with the virus, and we have to protect those that have are most susceptible, and people that are elderly or passing away. But those normally, we can't do anything about age, but we can do something about these underlying conditions.
He says he wants to better raise awareness about how people with chronic diseases can protect themselves. He plans to introduce a proposal at next week's County Board of Supervisors meeting. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
San Diego County is not meeting its goal to begin investigations of new COVID-19 cases within 24 hours. And that means the close contacts of people who test positive are not being alerted quickly or being told to quarantine. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser says the county is working to get more people on the job.
The county set a goal that 70% of new case investigations would begin within 24 hours. Currently, just 11% of case investigations meet that goal. Part of the reason is likely because the county does not have enough case investigators. Case investigators are the people who call and question a person who has tested positive for COVID-19.
There's a real art to it because you're catching people in a really vulnerable moment, right? Like that's not a great phone call.
Rebecca Fielding Miller is an epidemiologist at UC San Diego.
And so you want people who are really empathetic and ideally multilingual and culturally competent, and who can really kind of sit with people in a moment of discomfort and both provide them with resources, make it very clear that they need to self-quarantine, and get this information out of them. So it's tricky.
Here's how the process works. Case investigators make a long phone call to find out who's been in contact with the infected person. Then they pass that information on to a contact tracer who calls all of the contacts of the infected person. So case investigators have to kick off the work the contact tracers do, and the county needs more of them. San Diego County currently has 270 case investigators and 232 contact tracers, and is in the process of hiring and training 253 more. Fielding Miller says the county missed an opportunity to better contain COVID-19 by not hiring more case investigators earlier on in April or May.
I think if we had had double or triple the number of contact tracers that we set a goal for in April, we would be in a really different situation right now.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
It was emotional, uplifting, and a true tribute to an American icon and civil rights legend. Congressman John Lewis was remembered this afternoon at his funeral in Atlanta. Daryl Forges has more.
We have come to say farewell to our friend.
Representative John Lewis was remembered today in a homegoing service at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. The 17-term congressman was honored by the youngest of friends.
John Lewis was my hero and my friend. Let's honor him by getting in good trouble.
And by former presidents from both sides of the political aisle.
He always thought of others. He always believed in preaching the gospel in word and in deed, insisting that hate and fear had to be answered with love and hope.
John Lewis was many things, but he was a man, a friend in sunshine and storm, a friend who would walk the stony roads that he asked you to walk.
Someday when we do finish that long journey towards freedom, when we do form a more perfect union, whether it's years from now or decades, or even if it takes another 2 centuries, John Lewis will be a founding father of that fuller, fairer, better America.
In return, John Lewis penned his own farewell to America. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring. In Atlanta, I'm Daryl Forges.
A man whose arrest was caught on camera is suing the city of La Mesa and the officer who arrested him. Amari Johnson's lawsuit lists 6 charges, including arrest without probable cause, excessive force, negligence, violence because of race, and failure to properly train officers. Johnson's lawyer says they were forced to sue when the city never responded to their request for the results of an internal investigation.
The city of La Mesa pledged transparency and pledged accountability, and we are seeing the exact opposite of that. We're seeing closed investigations. We're seeing no action being taken. We're not being given any information, and it's upsetting.
La Mesa Police Chief Walt Vasquez released a statement Tuesday saying the investigation is complete, but there are still steps required by California law before he's allowed to release it or comment on it. President Trump is walking back his suggestion that November's presidential election should be postponed, but repeated his claims about potential voter fraud. As Whitney Wild reports, his comments faced criticism from lawmakers on both sides.
In the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, President Trump has been focused on
mail-in ballots. Be careful. Be careful.
Now, roughly 3 months before Election Day, the president is openly questioning the validity of the presidential race, tweeting, "With universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote." The tweet follows a slew of bad news for President Trump. Recent polling shows him tied or trailing former Vice President Joe Biden in key battleground states. There's widespread disapproval over his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. And the once hot economy the president staked his re-election on has turned cold, with the federal government reporting the worst economic contraction in recorded history.
He will do anything to get reelected. And more importantly, he'll do anything to delegitimize this election.
Yet the president has no authority to change the date of the election. The Constitution gives Congress that power. Almost immediately, lawmakers from both parties said there was no likelihood of delaying the election.
It's never been done. It never should be done.
No way should we ever not hold our election on the day that we have it.
Still, Democrats fear the president is already laying the groundwork to refuse the results of the election if he doesn't win. At the White House, I'm Whitney Wild.
A heat wave is bringing near record temperatures to our county. Jeff Cornish has your forecast.
It's a hot time, especially away from the coast. In fact, heat advisories are in effect for the valley locations and the lower portions of mountains, all mountains below 5,000 feet elevation under heat advisories this Thursday, Friday, into Saturday as well. Excessive heat warning in effect for the deserts, and these heat alerts will be running until 9 p.m. on Saturday. So the only places avoiding the heat alerts are the highest elevations of the mountains and places near or along the coast. So be careful when you're out and about over the next few days. You don't want to overdo it. You can see excessive heat warnings, Borrego Springs and points east. Many others, Campo, Mount Laguna, Ramona, Escondido, El Cajon, under heat advisories. But we do find a little more comfort along the coast. Overnight tonight, we'll get down to 61 in Oceanside, 67 in the big city. Heading east, so a low of 90 in Borrego Springs. It must be midsummer, 119 degrees tomorrow. That's a steamy one. There you can see that smoke coming off the thermometer there. It's a cartoon, but the communication point here is that it's going to be especially hot across the interior. El Cajon, 101 tomorrow. Looking at Friday afternoon's forecast versus records, we expect Palm Springs to climb to 120. The record high for July 31st in Palm Springs is 122. So we'll be within a couple of degrees of records. This weekend, still scorching, especially on Saturday, a little less scorching on Sunday as we watch Tropical Storm Isaias approach Florida on Saturday as well. But in the southwest, coastal forecast, low to mid-80s Friday, upper 70s beginning Monday and Tuesday. We're taking you inland. It's a hot time, 97 Friday, 96 Saturday. Sunday, you subtract a couple of degrees, upper 80s by Tuesday afternoon. Into the mountains we go. Low 90s Friday, low 80s Monday and Tuesday. And the deserts, scorching heat, 119 Friday, 116 Saturday. A slow drop in temperature to 111, still hot. On Tuesday, be safe out there. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
Congress is working on another round of loans for struggling businesses under the Paycheck Protection Program known as PPP. Our partner station KPCC mapped the winners and losers in the race for loans. KPBS's investigative reporter Amita Sharma shows us where local businesses had a tough time getting any money.
My name is Andrew Benavides. I own Caffeina Cafe, and I applied for a PPP loan back around April.
Just 1 month into the pandemic and 1 year into his long-held dream of owning a business, his City Heights coffee shop sales dropped by half.
And people decided not to go out anymore.
26-year-old Benavides hoped to use the federal loan as a lifeline to cover rent, utilities, inventory, everything that keeps a business afloat. But officials told him he wasn't eligible.
According to them, at the time, I didn't fall under one of their qualifications, which was having employees.
Mom and pop stores and one-man shops such as Benavides' Caffeina often have fewer than 10 employees. Having fewer workers made it harder to qualify for badly needed government aid.
Also, the rules kept changing.
Enrique Gandaria is executive director of the City Heights Business Association.
It's just not a good situation for small businesses.
Especially in some poorer communities of color like City Heights, which received a total of 317 loans. That money, according to federal data, helped save around 1,500 jobs. In contrast, Claremont, north of I-8 and where more than half the population is white, got 800 loans and retained over 3,600 jobs. Claremont's population is actually just under a quarter smaller than City Heights. Gandaria blamed that wide gap on many small businesses lacking access to accountants, lawyers, and bankers who can help navigate what may be for some a complex bureaucratic process. He also blamed blamed poor loan outreach in areas that are low income, of color, and ethnically mixed.
Well, in City Heights, we have a community that's extremely diverse, with many first-generation immigrants that are entrepreneurs, very entrepreneurial. But they come from countries where they don't trust the government for very good reasons. And they're not used to dealing with government agencies.
There are also big margins in the number of PPP loans given out to some cities north and south of the 8 freeway. Chula Vista got 2,200 PPP loans and saved over 21,000 jobs. Carlsbad businesses obtained 3,400 loans, preserving more than 38,000 jobs. Escondido appears to be an outlier. The North County ethnically diverse city secured 2,100 loans and held on to 32,000 jobs. It's one of the cities that was more efficient in a key goal of the program, job preservation.
Cities like Escondido, El Cajon, La Mesa, their small businesses saved over 6.5 jobs per loan, whereas in Encinitas, for example, it was only 4.4 jobs per loan.
SDSU business lecturer Miro Kopik says overall the distribution of loans was aligned with the distribution of businesses in the county. Kopik agrees the government should have done a better job in letting underserved communities know the loans are available and how to apply. But he adds that the PPP still served its mission in getting small loans out to small businesses.
The number of loans less than 150,000 is 85% of the PPP loans that were processed in San Diego County.
As for Benavides, he says he'll apply for the next round of PPP loans.
We don't need too much, but we still need a lump sum just to keep our lights on.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
And this story is on our website, kpbs.org. There you can find the interactive map from our partner station, KPCC, and it shows which San Diego County communities received PPP loans and is searchable by zip code. San Diego's only haircutter for children with autism and other special needs is joining a lawsuit. It's an effort to overturn the governor's order that salons must do their work outside. Amy Mullins-Boychak is the owner of Therapy Hair Salon, and she says the order threatens the safety and well-being of her clients.
Everything has been stripped from them. They're losing services. The schools are not able to provide the things that they need. And this is also a social outlet for them. It's safety here. There's 4 walls and a door. They don't have to worry about running into a parking lot and getting hit by a car just to get a haircut.
She alone serves about 20 clients per day, and she says the guidelines imposed on salons have cost her $25,000. UC San Diego's hospitals are recognized as some of the best in San Diego and in the country. But as iNewsSource investigative reporter Brad Racino explains, leaked documents show doctors within the UCSD health system are far from happy.
A 2018 survey found the trust that physicians at UCSD medical centers had in their leadership ranked in the bottom 1% when compared to thousands of other U.S. healthcare organizations, and their job satisfaction ranked in the bottom 3%. 1 in 5 said they wouldn't recommend working at UCSD and wouldn't stay if offered a similar job elsewhere. Almost half said they didn't have adequate input into decisions that affected their practices. UCSD employees told iNewsSource physicians at the medical centers are often treated as second-class citizens, that hospital administrators see doctors as money-generating machines, while academic leadership expects them to do research and teach students without providing the necessary resources. Hospital higher-ups told iNewsSource the survey results surprised them, and they've taken steps to address morale since the scores came out. They've changed the hospital's leadership structure, put more doctors in management roles, and conducted listening dinners, among many other changes. There hasn't been another survey of doctors since 2018, but UCSD leadership is convinced things have improved because of the attention they've placed on fixing the morale problem. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Brad Racino.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. A proposal for affordable housing at a South Bay trolley station is getting bigger. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the developers and the transit agency want more density.
Right by the Palm Avenue trolley station sits a nearly 4-acre parking lot, and it's usually mostly empty. The Metropolitan Transit System has been in talks with a development team for the past year around plans to build low and moderate income affordable housing there. The initial plan was for just 250 apartments. Now the developers want to build more than 400. The new plan was presented to MTS board members Thursday. San Diego City Council President Georgette Gomez says MTS updated its real estate policy in 2018 for just this reason, to get the most affordable housing on its land as possible.
This is exactly what we had in mind in terms of utilizing the spaces a bit more that would really provide an opportunity to address the housing crisis. So this is very exciting to me.
The project would also include a playground for residents and on-site childcare. MTS and the development team hope to strike a deal on the project by February of next year. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A recap now of today's top story. As the economy struggles amid the pandemic, unemployed Americans will lose that $600 benefit starting tomorrow. Today, the county reported 6 deaths from the coronavirus and 381 new cases. 5 outbreaks were reported in restaurants. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.